Michael Jordan, Mark Cuban, and other NBA owners in the past 3 years who have sold their NBA teams has saw this thing coming from a mile away. This might be news to everyone, in the public in general, and maybe some NBA owners, that there's major gambling problems in the NBA. This has been going on for years, and it's just ironic that Michael Jordan himself was one of the first owners in the past 3 years who sold his NBA team, and he didn't really have to sell his team out of whatever financial reason he had, but it seemed like there was a deeper meaning for him and Mark Cuban to sell their teams. And now this whole gambling situation with the NBA, it kind of makes sense why they kind of have to, knowing especially Michael Jordan's history with gambling. If you think Michael Jordan saw this thing coming with this whole gambling situation with the NBA, give this video a like. And if you think this is just the tip of the iceberg and there's more players and coaches that are involved in this whole gambling situation in the NBA, press that subscribe button on my channel if you think there's more people involved. But today, let's break down the overall situation and all the possibilities on why these things are happening in the NBA right now, especially the timing of everything. Can you imagine making these type of announcement in the very first day of the season? It can't get any calculated than that. We will be talking about other countries who also have motives on, having their own basketball league and planning to take over or surpass the NBA. And ironically, with all these things happening with a gambling situation in the NBA, Mark Cuban actually sold the Dallas Mavericks to a big casino family. Now, the Edelson and the Dumont family, they came into this deal representing that they're a heavy real estate family where majority of their assets are from. But they also are a very, very big casino family. They own a lot of casinos, big casinos, apparently in Vegas. And at some point, there was this heavy conversation of the Dallas Mavericks, potentially moving to a different state. Now, I don't remember whether that was in Vegas or I know for a fact that it was somewhere, in the state of Nevada. If you know which city it was, let me know in the comment section. Because apparently in the state of Texas, gambling or any type of casino is not allowed in the state of Texas. That's why the whole buzz about, the Dallas Mavericks moving to a different state or a different city was so big because of that situation alone, knowing the Dumont and the Edelson family's background when it comes to having and owning casinos. It is actually quite surprising that, Adam Silver and the whole NBA ownership, the other owners of the other NBA teams allowed someone that has, a gambling background, a casino background. They allowed someone to own an NBA team, because that right there is a huge red flag. Like the conflict of interest or interest of conflict or whatever that whole situation is, like that's a whole red flag right there. Now, if David Stern was still a commissioner, I'm not too sure if he is able to allow these type of owners to step into the NBA, because David Stern was he was a very squeaky clean type of guy, and he didn't want a lot of mess around his league, which is the NBA. And it's just funny how loosey goosey Adam Silver is, and there's nothing wrong with that and being flexible, but I feel like there's certain situations where you just gotta be, draw the line and have your own boundaries when it comes to protecting the league. And this right here, it doesn't sound good for the NBA to have these type of owners come into the NBA, especially at the professional level. Now let's revisit Michael Jordan's situation and his gambling history in the NBA, or while he was playing in the NBA, staying up super late, during the NBA finals or, any important games in the playoffs. He was caught leaving the casino at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., something crazy late. And from my own understanding, that kind of matches Michael Jordan's personality, especially when it comes to winning. He has this obsessive, personality of, just he wants to win every time, everywhere, anytime in the world. Like every time there's competition, he always want to win. And that kind of matches the story and his habits. And speaking of stories, when it comes to Michael Jordan's 2-year retirement and going away to go play baseball, apparently there was way more than just, going away and trying to honor his father, from his first love of baseball. And he wanted to go away for 2 years and have a break from basketball because apparently he was not having the same spark as he used to with basketball ever since his father passed away. But also, that was apparently a cover-up story for him being suspended from the NBA for 2 years. And guess what that suspension was for? It was from gambling, or maybe being ties to mafias and getting involved in selling games or sports betting or whatever that case may be. And that whole baseball situation and being a baseball player for 2 years, that was just all a cover-up story just for him to come back in the NBA after 2-year suspension. And the NBA at that time could not afford to have that that type of press out there. Having Michael Jordan, quote unquote, well, he is the best basketball player of all time, but you cannot have that type of press with his name and with the NBA during that time, because that was a very crucial time during the 90s, because during the 90s, the NBA was basically building the foundation of what we know the NBA is now, which is this, well-oiled machine that's just producing great product. And David Stern, during that time, who was the commissioner in the 90s, he did a very good job of covering that story up. I mean, he covered up so many great big stories that could have, ended or, took a toll in the NBA's reputation. David Stern was the master of covering things up, especially what just happened with the referee. What's that guy's name? Was it Tim Donaghy with the sports betting? He covered that up very well because there was way more referees and way more people that was involved in that case, and David Stern did a great job of covering that story up. The same thing what he did with the Michael Jordan suspension for 2 years. And now fast forward to today, 3 years ago, 2022 or 2023, where Michael Jordan sold his NBA team for no reason. It kind of makes sense now because all these gambling situation and cases are popping up. And if you read the case or you hear the reports about the case that's coming out now, apparently these people has been under investigation for the past 3 years. Some of them has even been going on ever since 2000, before COVID, 2017, 2018. And when did Michael Jordan sold his ownership? His majority ownership with the Charlotte Hornets, it was in 2023. So he definitely saw this thing coming. And then, he had to sell the team just to come clean for whatever situation that he may encounter in the future. And the last part of this situation is other countries trying to start their own professional basketball league that could potentially surpass the NBA. 2 countries that are very aggressive about it is China and Saudi Arabia. There has been plenty of talks that, especially with China trying to start their own, a league that could surpass the NBA one day. And majority of the talk was coming from Kobe Bryant himself, that apparently China and Kobe Bryant, they're very similar players, but Kobe and China was having really strong conversations about starting their own league, their own professional basketball league, and, hopefully having the plans of surpassing the NBA. And those conversations that Kobe had may or may not have any influence of his accident. Now that might be a little bit of a stretch, some conspiracy theory here and there, but at the end of it, like nowadays, some of these things that are a conspiracy theory, you fast forward 6 months from now and they end up being true. But that's just something that we could play with. In another country that has a strong interest of having their own professional basketball league is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has been, pursuing the NBA to expand in the Middle East or somewhere in Europe so that it's a little bit closer to Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia has all the money in the world to make those type of things happen, even to reach the NBA and make it closer to the Middle East. Now, why am I bringing these 2 countries up? Now, let me explain to you guys. When you are trying to have your own product and trying to promote it or planning to have it, in order for you to take over within that industry or within that market, you must do certain things to devalue your competition. That is like one of the oldest tricks in the book in business. Some people might say, oh, that's just dirty business, this and that. Well, unfortunately, It's very naive for you to think that way, where everything is just natural and pure. Well, a lot of things in the world, especially in the bigger scale of things, that's how people do their business. So what about you guys? What do you guys think about this whole situation right now with the gambling issues that's happening in the NBA? Let me know in the comment section. And before you go, check this video out. I was talking about how the ratings in the NBA finals are going down. It should pop up right now. And I will see you on the next video.